let's talk about making longer cross cuts and cutting things that are unusual shapes. This is a very difficult thing to do on the table saw or with either of the miter saws. Now, of course, you can use a hand saw, a jigsaw would work, or a circular saw, but we have this fantastic system here called the Kreg track saw, and this makes it easy to make a straight cut even on an unusual shaped piece of wood. So I'm going to show you how this system works. It's always over here in front of the chalkboard. I keep the saw behind the desk in the toolboxes, but all you have to do is ask me for it. I will get it out and I'll help you set it up and show you how to use it the first time. I'm going to go through it real quick here in this video. So first you see the saw, and it looks like a pretty standard circular saw. It's a little bit different. It has a plunge feature, and that's what's a little bit tricky about it. You also have this table system here with the rail, and this is what the saw slides on. So the saw fits in the track, and that's why it's called a track saw, and then it slides along that track. So the idea is that you set up your cut piece underneath this track, you get the saw set up, make sure the piece is secure, and then you push the red button, and that lets you plunge the saw down, and then you can cut. So you want a little bit of space in front of and on the other side of, in front of and behind the cut piece for the saw to be able to operate. So I've got this strange shaped piece of wood here, and I made a straight line on it, and let's see if we can make a straight cut using the Kreg track saw. I'm going to show you how to set this up. Okay, so the first thing to notice here is that this track is on a funny hinge, and that allows it to be propped up so that there's some space underneath. The first thing that you would want to do is slide your board underneath here. You want the cutoff sticking out the saw side, and the workpiece should be underneath the track. Now the saw is going to glide right along this edge of the track, and so you want to line that up with your mark. So the first thing you do is you slide your board under here, and then you let that track sit back down, and you adjust the board so that the edge of the track lines up with the pencil mark. Now, if I just left it like this, put the tracks on the track and cut it, this board would move around. So we need a way to stabilize this board. Now the first thing that's going to happen is I'm going to cut from this direction. That means the board is going to want to slip this way. All right? So I'm going to use what are called dogs. They're these little funny shaped things, and they go in the holes of the table. And I'm going to line up as close as I can my cut piece, and I'm going to slide it until I can push it against one of these dogs, just like that. Now, sometimes you can have a piece that's the right shape that you can just use two dogs and wedge it in there and it'll stay put. But this piece is going to move around. I only have one dog ahead of it, and when I start to push, it's going to shift. Now that can be dangerous for me with the saw, and it'll also give me a lame cut. So I'm going to use this work clamp here to hold it in place from this point. Now the way that these work is you slide this angled part under the table, you push this down, and then when you push up, it clicks and it clamps it in place, like this. So it goes under the table. I hold the metal up, push this all the way down, and now that is tightly clamped, and this piece of wood can't really move. Now I can go ahead and use the track saw. Now one of the adjustments that you have to make on this saw is you have to set the depth, and you do that right here. What you have to know is the thickness of your cut piece. So I'm going to take my tape measure I'm going to measure the thickness of that board. It's 1/2 inch plywood. All right, so I'm going to set my depth guide at just a little more than a 1/2 inch. That way I know that I'll cut through, but I won't cut the table too deeply. Once I have that set, I can put the saw on the track. I'm ahead of my workpiece. I have enough room to plunge and then cut. The red button on the back of the saw here is what lets you plunge, and it also functions as the safety button. So what you want to do to operate the saw is push the red button, then pull the trigger, plunge, and then cut, like this. There's my cutoff piece, nice and straight. Now I can move the saw. I can lift the track up, loosen my clamp by pushing in that green button. And I have my cut. You'll notice the one end of the track has this funny plastic piece on it. This is the side of the track that you should start from. You cut away from this piece, and these little notches are actually cord keepers. It will keep the cord from flopping off the table and possibly getting in front of your cut or getting tangled. So utilize that as a nice little tool. Now, if you ever wanted to extend this track to make a longer cut on a different table, it comes off. And we have extension brackets that you can mount right there. When you're all finished using the Kreg saw, please try to put everything back where you found it. Put the dogs back in the little box, and take this bag off the back of the saw. There's a little twist, and it should pop right off. Make sure the saw is unplugged. And you're gonna wanna have it pointed down when you take it off because it's an open hole, and this is full of sawdust. There's a little zipper on the back of the bag. Please take it over to one of the garbage cans, not the recycling can, and open the zipper and just bang out all of the loose sawdust. And then you can put this back on the saw, wrap up the cord, and bring it back to me at the desk.